Srila Prabhupada's instructions on editing are in his own books by Prahlada-Nrsimha Dasa. In this article, we hope to bring to light how Srila Prabhupada, the Acharya and Jagat Guru, has personally instructed the proper etiquette to all his followers in how to deal with seeming mistakes or errors in the writings of an Uttama Adhikari and Acharya. In this time of confusion and controversy in regard to the editing of the BBTI, we humbly submit the following at the feet of all the Vaishnavas for their own contemplation and realization in spiritual life. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 9:358, Srila Prabhupada cites his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who points out that in the 74th verse of this same chapter, there is an apparent error made by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Srila Prabhupada, just to teach us the principle of Arsa-Prayoga, please see quotes from Srila Prabhupada on Arsa-Prayoga at the end of this article, does not touch the words of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, but leaves this apparent error as it is, out of respect for the transcendental book. Even though Srila Prabhupada's own spiritual master, the most pure and intimate confidential devotee and associate of Lord Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, had clearly pointed out that this is an apparent error and is apparently wrong. Furthermore, in the purport to that 74th verse mentioned above, Srila Prabhupada mentions nothing. Only at the end of the chapter, after Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj concludes his narration, does Srila Prabhupada even mention the apparent mistake. That Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 9:358 purport is cited here for your reference. Quote, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that in the 74th verse of this chapter, it is stated that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the temple of Shiyali Bhairavi, but actually at Shiyali, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the temple of Sri Bhuvaraha. Near Shiyali and Chidambaram, there is a temple known as Sri Mushnam. In this temple, there is a deity of Sri Bhuvaraha. In the jurisdiction of Chidambaram, there is a district known as Southern Arcot. The town of Shiyali is in that district. There is a temple of Sri Bhuvarahadev nearby, not Bhairavi Devi. This is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's conclusion. End quote. This is a very good lesson to make a clear and prominent note of how Srila Prabhupada, the teacher by example, has chosen to edit, or rather not edit, the words of the spiritual masters of previous acharyas' writings. Srila Prabhupada has every right in the world to change or edit anything, for he is Krishna's direct representative and the present acharya and current link to the parampara. But as the acharya, he has himself stuck to the principle of Arsa-Prayoga and did not change it just to teach us respect, correct behavior. He does not touch this apparent mistake, quote-unquote mistake. He leaves it completely untouched as it is. As Srila Prabhupada said, quote, I have instructed everything in my books, end quote. Letter to Dinadayal, Mayapur, 25th February 1976. So Srila Prabhupada has also instructed us to not edit the books in his books themselves. There are many instances of this in Srila Prabhupada's writings, if we just look. We will cite another place where Srila Prabhupada left a seeming mistake as it is, even though it may be considered quote-unquote wrong. Quote, Ambikavana is situated somewhere in the Gujarat province. Ambikavana is said to be situated on the river Saraswati, yet we do not find any Saraswati river in the Gujarat province. The only river there is Suvarmati. In India, all the big places of pilgrimage are situated on nice rivers like the Ganges, Yamuna, Saraswati, Narmada, Godavari, Kaveri, etc. Ambikavana was situated on the bank of Saraswati, and all the cowherdmen and Nanda Maharaj went there. End quote, Krishna Book, 1970 edition, Volume 1, Chapter 33, Vijayadhara liberated and the demon Shankasura killed. In this quote from Srila Prabhupada's original Krishna book, Prabhupada mentions that although it says, quote, Ambikavana is said to be situated on the river Saraswati, yet we do not find any Saraswati river in the Gujarat province, end quote. Prabhupada does not change the text to correct the seeming mistake. Below is another example of something that may be considered from the scholarly or mundane viewpoint quote-unquote wrong with the text, but it was left as it is out of respect for the author, adhering to the principle of arsa-Prayoga. Quote, translation. Thus Paramananda Puri started for Jagannath Puri, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began walking toward Sri Shaila. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks, quote, when Sri Shaila is being indicated by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, it is not clearly understood. There is no temple of Mallikarjuna in this area, because the Sri Shaila located in the district of Dharwad cannot possibly be there. That Sri Shaila is on the southern side of Belgaum, and the Shiva temple of Mallikarjuna is located there. Refer to text 15 of this chapter. It is said that on that hill Lord Shiva lived with Devi. Also, Lord Brahma lived there with all the demigods. End quote. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 9,174. Srila Prabhupada's own standards and the established Vedic principle of arsa-Prayoga that he gave to us are not being followed by the BPT international editors headed by Jayadvaita Swami and Dravida. On the contrary, the exact opposite is being done, causing Srila Prabhupada's once authorized and respected writings to be lost and devalued due to these unauthorized offensive changes that directly go against Srila Prabhupada's will and example. Through his books, Srila Prabhupada is always instructing us and guiding us in the deep mellows of transcendental mood, rasa. If we disregard this guidance, our minds and service will be off improper mellows, rasa bhas, and not pure bhakti, and will thus not be acceptable by Krishna. Srila Prabhupada further explains this fact in the purport of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 10, 113 and 114 as follows. Quote, by overlapping mellows, rasa bhas, one eventually becomes a prakrita sahajya and takes everything to be very easy. One may also become a member of the Bhola community and gradually become attracted to material activities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, therefore, has advised us to avoid bhakti, siddhanta virudha, and ras abhas. In this way, the devotee can remain pure and free from fall downs. Everyone should try to remain aloof from bhakti, siddhanta virudha, and rasa-bhas. End quote. Furthermore, Srila Prabhupada drives this point home in the very next purport in an effort to make this explicitly clear to his followers. Unfortunately, today, almost 40 years later, we are still not getting it. Quote, pure devotees of the Lord do not accept impure principles. Impure devotees accept rasa-bhas or overlapping, contradictory mellows, and other principles opposed to the bhakti path. The followers of such impure principles are never accepted as pure devotees. There are many parties following the path of rasa-bhas, and the followers are sometimes adored by ordinary men. Those who adopt the conclusions of rasa-bhas and bhakti siddhanta virudha are never accepted as devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Swarup Damodar Goswami never approved such followers as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, nor did he allow them even to meet the Supreme Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. End quote, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 10, 114. The few references quoted in this short article are by no means at all a comprehensive list of these types of instances. A book could be written on this topic alone, listing the numerous occasions of such instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. Here we are citing only a few that we have recently noticed in our own personal reading of His Divine Grace's books for the purpose of this article. So what to do about the seeming discrepancies that a critical editor may find in Srila Prabhupada's books? As for me, I do not know, for I am just a simple second-generation devotee. But as a follower of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, I have no other recourse but to have fidelity to him and take his example as the standard and adhere to that. What else can we do? To conclude, let me leave the thoughtful reader of this article with these important words Srila Prabhupada has given in his Nectar of Instruction, verse 6, last paragraph, where he warns us not to correct the Acharya, a spiritual master. Quote, "It is also an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. It is offensive to try to give him advice or to correct him. The spiritual master must not be subjected to the advice of a disciple." End quote. And in the end, there is a short video where two of Srila Prabhupada's most senior disciples recall Prabhupada's direct personal instructions on editing and the standards and mood he wanted to be followed. Unfortunately, it seems that this video is no longer available. Srila Prabhupada says, Prabhupada, the system is, whatever authority has done, even there is mistake, it should be accepted. Radhavallabha, oh, Prabhupada, arsa-Prayoga, that is, he should not become more learned than the authority. That is very bad habit. Prabhupada, why finish it? Whatever is done, no more. Radhavallabha, well, now that this system of no corrections anywhere, that makes it very simple. Then he can't do anything. I don't think he wants to, either. It makes it more simple for him. It makes him very uncomfortable. Prabhupada, no corrections. Conversation with Italian woman with translator, February 28, 1977, Mayapur. Note, in the database, the transcriber, not being familiar enough with Sanskrit, did not transcribe the word Arsa-Prayoga correctly, so it is misspelled. But for the purpose of this article, we have corrected it above. Quote, unless one is self-realized, there is practically no use writing about Krishna. This transcendental writing does not depend on material education. It depends on the spiritual realization. You will find, therefore, in the comments of Bhagavatam by different acharyas, even there are some discrepancies, they are accepted as arsa-Prayoga. It should remain as it is. End quote. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5, 23 and 24, Vrindavan, March 31st, 1976. Note, again in the database, the transcriber, not being familiar enough with Sanskrit, did not transcribe this word correctly, so it was misspelled originally. End of article. Thanks to Prahlada-Nrsimha Prabhu. Hare Krishna.